Good morning, and welcome to today's Thought for the Day on Thursday, the 13th of October. Today's reading is Psalm 78, verses 1 to 39, and it is taken from the English Standard Version of the Bible. Give ear, O my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings from of old, things that we have heard and known, that our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might, and the wonders that he has done. He established a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach to their children, that the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise and tell them to their children, so that they should set their hope in God, and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and that they should not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation whose heart was not steadfast, whose spirit was not faithful to God. The Ephraimites, armed with the bow, turned back in the day of battle. They did not keep God's covenant, but refused to walk according to his law. They forgot his works and the wonders that he had shown them. In the sight of their fathers he performed wonders in the land of Egypt, in the fields of Zoan. He divided the sea, and let them pass through it, and made the waters stand like a heap. In the daytime he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a fiery light. He split rocks in the wilderness, and gave them drink abundantly as from the deep. He made streams come out of the rock, and caused waters to flow down like rivers. Yet they sinned still more against him, rebelling against the Most High in the desert. They tested God in their heart by demanding the food they craved. They spoke against God, saying, "Can God spread a table in the wilderness?" He struck the rock so that water gushed out and streams overflowed. Can he also give bread and provide meat for his people? Therefore, when the Lord heard, he was full of wrath. A fire was kindled against Jacob. His anger rose against Israel, because they did not believe in God and did not trust his saving power. Yet he commanded the skies above and opened the doors of heaven. And he rained down on them manna to eat, and gave them the grain of heaven. Man ate the bread of the angels. He sent them food in abundance. He caused the east wind to blow in the heavens, and by his power he led out the south wind. He rained meat on them like dust, winged birds like the sand of the seas. He let them fall in the midst of their camp, all around their dwellings. And they ate and were well filled, for he gave them what they craved. But before they had satisfied their craving, while the food was still in their mouths, the anger of God rose against them. And he killed the strongest of them and laid low the young men of Israel. In spite of all this, they still sinned. Despite his wonders, they did not believe. So he made their days vanish like a breath, and their years in terror. When he killed them, they sought him. They repented and sought God earnestly. They remembered that God was their rock, the Most High God, their Redeemer. But They flattered him with their mouths. They lied to him with their tongues. Their heart was not steadfast towards him. They were not faithful to his covenant. Yet he, being compassionate, atoned for their iniquity and did not destroy them. He restrained his anger often and did not stir up all his wrath. He remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passes and comes not again. I've heard it described as the rhythmic history of Israel, and I rather like that description. It's this story repeated throughout the Old Testament, Israel's on-off relationship with this steadfast, faithful God. Rebellion and redemption, sin and forgiveness, wrath and mercy. A God who is faithful to his covenant, even when his people continually fail to be. Verse 11, they forgot his works. Verse 13, he divided the sea. Verse 14, he led them with a cloud. Verse 17, they sinned still more against him. Verse 18, they tested God in their heart. Verse 24, he rained down manna to eat. Verse 32, in spite of this, they still sinned. Verse 38, he atoned for their iniquity. And if we continue through the rest of the psalm, we see the pattern continue. Verse 42, they did not remember his power. 43, he performed his signs in Egypt. 54, he brought them to his holy land. 58, they moved him to jealousy with their idols. 59, he utterly rejected Israel. 72, he sent a king to shepherd them. Psalm 78 is often classified as a historical psalm because the majority of the psalm is given to a retelling of Israel's history, from their time in Egypt to the reign of King David. But this isn't history for the sake of records. This is history with a lesson. The psalmist urges us to listen. He wants us to learn from that history, and he wants us to leave it as a legacy for the next generation. Each generation has a responsibility to teach the next generation about the works of God, and each generation has a responsibility to take hold of that truth for themselves. We are a people who are prone to forget. We must work hard to remember. We need to read the Bible stories to remind ourselves continuously, again and again, of all the things that God has done for his people, for his faithfulness and steadfastness throughout. But I believe we also need to tell today's stories, to recount to each other the testimonies of what God is doing here and now in all of our lives. We need to share the stories old and new, to remind ourselves how God continues to provide and care for us. So let us take care of the stories. Let us tell them over and over. Let us learn from them, and let us pass them on to others. I hope you have a good rest of your day.